Okay, could everybody please sit as tall as you can and breathe together? Breathe in and out. Very good. That's really well done. Breathe in and out. Now keep breathing. Please don't stop during my presentation while we look at the question, what the source of creative inspiration is. And when I say creative inspiration, that's what I mean by creativity. What? Now, how many people here struggle to be inspired sometimes? From time to time, struggle to be inspired. If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. You've never struggled in your life to be inspired to do something, ever. Raise your hand if you ever struggle to be inspired. Now, the question is, when you struggle with that inspiration, where do you find it? Do you find it outside yourself or inside? This is a question that has been asked throughout history, and I don't know if I'm going to live up to the promise for wisdom, but let's look at this question a bit, because it goes all the way back in recorded history. Right? The Greeks believed that inspiration could only come from outside, from the gods. Human beings could not create our own inspiration. In fact, they called creativity technology, technique. It's a method. It's a way of doing things, not something that was inspired. Only the gods could bring that, and that's pretty much throughout history how it's been. For example, self do nothing, the Holy Spirit accomplishes all through me, William Blake. Right? Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, many centuries later, said that all creative spirit comes from the divine source. This is how it's always been, and if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because think about what inspires you. Are you the kind of person that gets inspired by nature? Raise your hand if you're inspired by nature, and look around you. Raise your hand if you're inspired by the city, urban environment. You notice different people are inspired by different things, right? We're not all inspired by the same thing. We're all human. We all breathe. Are you still breathing? You're still breathing. Okay, what about morning? How many people here are more inspired when you wake up in the morning? Yeah? And how many people here are more inspired when you wake up at night? Those of you not raising your hands, never inspired, that's okay, we'll get you there, right? But you'll notice different people are inspired by different things, yeah? So it brings us back to the question that I dealt with after all this history came together. Some decades ago, I was sitting in a small town called Mikulov in Moravia. Anybody know where that is, Moravia? It's like Bohemia, but the minor league version. I was writing a novel, trying to be inspired, drinking red wine, walking in the forest, and smoking a whole lot of marijuana. We won't talk about that tonight, but some of you know that story. But here is a quote I came across. You can't wait for inspiration to come to you. You have to go out after it with a club. And I like this quote, because this was like, I have the power, right? You have the power, but I still couldn't get myself inspired. So I was wondering still, where does it come from? I can go out after it with a club, but what am I going after? What is the source of inspiration? And then I realized something. You know what I realized? Inspiration means what? Inspiration, breathing in. Inspire. Everybody still breathing, right? You want to breathe on each slide, keep yourself going, right? So the first thing you want to know is that in the beginning was not the word, guys. In the beginning was the breath. Try breathing all your air out and then say something. You can't do it, right? You have to breathe in. In the beginning was the breath, then the word. Inspiration, then creation. Makes sense, right? Now here's the second thing. When you breathe all your air out and create, you eventually have to breathe again, right? Does anybody want to try to hold your breath for the rest of this talk? It's only a couple of minutes. The world record's 24 minutes. Hold your breath. You eventually have to breathe in, right? Inspiration's easy. It doesn't take any effort at all. It's natural. And when you breathe out again, you're creating, right? And when you create, you're breathing out toxins, isn't it? You breathe in fresh air and you breathe out toxins. As Ernest Hemingway once said, the first draft of anything is shit. Why do we struggle with being inspired to create when creation is not something that requires a good result? It's a cycle. We breathe in, we're inspired, and we create. We all know that. But do we realize that we have to create in order to be inspired? It's a cycle. Now, let me get to the important thing. Because so far this is all just background, right? It's actually a bit of a collaboration between the outside and the inside. If you think about it, if you hold your breath, Until you can't hold it anymore, your body will knock itself unconscious to make you breathe. Now, is it you pulling the air in at that point, or is the air outside forcing itself into you? Kind of hard to know the difference between inside and outside. As Amma, the Indian saint, said, there's no difference between the Creator and the creation. It's like the ocean and the waves. So the question you want to look at really here is, what is inspiring you? Those of you that raised your hand said it's the morning that inspires you. It's not the morning that inspires you. Because if it was, all of the people in this room would be inspired by the morning, right? If it was the night that inspired you, everybody would be inspired by the night. It's you choosing to be inspired by the morning. It's your habit. It's your identity, what you choose. But why? Why do you choose to not be inspired at night? Why do you choose not to be inspired all the time when you could? Because you can do it. Because the source of inspiration is you. It's obvious. It was never outside. It's always been inside of us. But one last thing. Have you ever noticed that when you are setting out to inspire others, inspiring yourself is easy? Have you ever noticed that? When you're creating something, inspiring yourself to do that for the people out there is easy. So when you need to be inspired, my little tip is this. Think about how you can inspire. And then just sit up. Breathe in. Together. Now keep breathing for the rest of the evening, please, while we watch the other speakers. And please stay inspired. Thank you.